Hello, Freda Wallace.
Hello.
Hello.
How we doing? You took me off guard then. I was just looking at the
You
chat.
you were just kind of
And
doing
I
something
was
else, and we're
self,
going
I
live.
was, I was self-promoting again, but you find me this week in a hotel room, and I've not got my proper equipment with me, so I hope the video's okay,
Yeah,
and I
it's
hope you can
coming. It's
hear.
coming across okay. Looks good, even though
I,
you're in a
I might
hotel room.
disclaimer. I might not be in full HD,
Oh my
so I'm
God, how are
sorry.
we going to cope?
I know I need to be in full HD, but. Anyway, so the hotel Wi-Fi is a bit, up and down.
Are you
So
wearing a hoodie, by the way?
yeah,
All right, okay, just
because
checking.
it's freezing.
Don't they have heating in
I've been
hotel rooms?
I've been on the phone to the hotel. The air conditioning is on. There's no heat, right? So
What kind of cheap
uh,
hotel are you in this time? Jeez.
it's not that cheap. I'm okay. No,
So
anyway,
anyway, this is welcome to Gender Nebulous episode 34.
welcome.
34, imagine. So tonight we're going to be talking about what we got up to last night, which was we spent an evening at LGBT Foundation in Manchester because Miss Freda Wallace was doing a panel event, which was quite good, wasn't it? How did you find it?
Well, you're now speaking to international woman,
International. Have you
Miss
listened
Freda
to this?
Wallace.
Have you heard
No,
this?
it was actually such a privilege to be invited because when they invited me, like, do you want to be on a panel for International Women's Day? My initial thought was, oh gosh,
So this
do
is
you know,
this was through your LGBT Foundation volunteering, wasn't it? How you got the invite?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I work for the LGBT Foundation as a volunteer. And I had like real imposter syndrome about it because I knew when I promoted this on Twitter, I was going to get, because of the kind
Abuse.
of people, yeah, abuse, but they say, oh, you're not a woman. Why are you representing International Women's Day? You're taking the place of a woman. So when they asked me, I said to the organizer, I said, when this goes on social media, you do realize that this is some of the backlash we're going to get, and they fully understand. And because it's
Yeah, it's
LGBT
LGBT
Foundation,
Foundation, so they used to.
that's why they wanted, because they're celebrating queer women.
Yeah.
Do you know? And that's it. And that's how I say. So they're doing a couple of initial. Ali, I forgot Ali's surname. The coordinator. I will find it, and you can put it in information. But she's facilitating a bunch of events over this week. Called Sugar and Spice.
So there's something every day this week, isn't there? That was
yeah.
Was that the first event, or was there something? Had there been something previous days?
There's been symposiums and things during the day, and there's going to be a film screening called a film by oh God, you know what? I'm terrible with names. The film's called Rebel Dykes, and it's about punk lesbians and their sort of girl scene, and it's very trans inclusive. And I know the director of that film, Sean, she's called, and I'm terrible with surnames, so sorry. But and then on Friday there's an open mic poetry thing that I'm going to do, so I'm going to be involved in that as well. But last night it was really nice because we Meg Lightheart was there. And me, and I'm going to forget another name now.
So Meg Lightheart, she's the lady who runs Indigo Gender Clinic.
That's right, the gender clinic which we are under.
Which
so
we
that
are
was
both
quite.
under,
yeah. It was quite odd to see Meg in a sort of more social setting for me, anyway, for personal reasons. But yeah, she was great. And there was a lady who's a lawyer. I'm not sure if she'd identify. I'm judging there a bit because I don't know if she identifies as, like I say, lady about everybody, but I don't know if she's a they them. I'm really sorry. I should have probably had that information with me, but she's a solicitor and a lawyer, and she was there to represent queer women at this chat, and it was really good.
So she was representing kind of the younger age group, wasn't she?
But I was really nervous going into it.
She was only in her 20s. She was quite young.
Yeah.
But a lawyer, so obviously done very well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And
it was. So there was a nice crowd in the room. It's not a big room, but there was a nice crowd in the room, and it was streamed online live as well. What I really liked, what was behind you on the wall, was a picture And it had I think it was like one of those, I don't know what you call it, like a crocheted thing. I don't know what it's called really.
Yeah, a tapestry.
Yeah, like a tapestry, and it had a line on it, "Dykes for trans rights." I thought that was appropriate. Lesbian feminism.
And so you probably got a better idea of how it went, because when I was on that,
yeah, well, you can't see it, can you, when you sat there?
I've forgotten half the things I said.
That was good. I enjoyed it.
And I think I was trying, because we were talking about our work, how we exist in a professional setting. That was kind of the framing of it. And I talked a bit about coming out at work, because I work, obviously we know I've spoken about it before. I worked for the ambulance service. When I started with the ambulance service, my name wasn't Freda. I transitioned while I was working for the ambulance service. So for me, that was a positive experience. And I know for some people, work is a very difficult thing to navigate, because you're in social situations, but with people that are not necessarily invested in being your friend necessarily. They're just people you have to get along with because you have to do a job. And I think that can be difficult for some people, because if you don't have a good support network, if you don't feel like your managers are positive, and this is why we have LGBTQ days. This is we have pronoun days. It's so companies can say, look, if you need to come out, if you need to talk to managers, our managers support you. It's not about anything else. It's not about making cis people think they have to talk in a different language all of a sudden, like some Daily Mail reporters might have you believe. It's just about sending a positive signal that the managers above you, if you're being bullied, or it might not even be that, it might just be you want to talk to somebody about, or organise a social event that's to do with LGBT, you can do it.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about your job, but where I work, we have all these different employee resource groups, call them ERGs, obviously. For all these, like a whole range of different characteristics. There's ERG for disability, there's one for menopause, there's one for LGBT. There's probably about 9 of these things for all different characteristics. Do you have a similar thing where you work, Freda?
Yeah. Well,
so I'm not sure if LGBT Foundation works with those organisations within companies. They probably do.
Well, there's a link
something I need to look into, actually.
There is a link between the emergency services and the wider community, because we do outreach programs and we do it through the union. And my union is Unison.
But does it have connections into LGBT Foundation?
Yeah, because when we do a pride event and we have the ambulance with the rainbow on and the police come out, all the things that the right wingers hate. What they say. Yeah. You're trying to turn our kids gay because you've got a queer ambulance.
So no, it's just an old ambulance that we've painted up.
No, it's just a chance, like probably a couple of days a year, where all the staff, they volunteer for it. They're not being paid to do it. It's the day off. It would have been their designated day off anyway. So because they care about the communities they exist in.
Yeah, and they don't just do this for LGBT community. They do it for all kinds of things. It's not, it's like it would be wrong. It would be wrong to say the ambulance service only does this and wasting money. That's not the only thing they do.
This is what got me in trouble actually, with because there were pictures of me that were put on social media in my uniform, stood next to the police, stood next to nurses who represent LGBTQ, the Pride umbrella, and then people think I should not be working for that organisation because for some reason I'm not fit to do that because I'm trans.
Yeah, but I mean, go to any Pride event, like the big events like Manchester. You'll see in the processions, there's company after company going down those processions with all kinds of people who are probably members of ERGs within those companies.
But I can say it now that the LGBT Alliance wrote to my bosses and tried to get me fired. They tried to do that, and the way they did it right, was to find pictures of me from my personal Twitter account, find instances where I was less than professional, and take those photos, take screenshots, and then put them together with pictures of me in uniform, and then say, oh, see this person who's involved in, like, goes on nights out dressed in next to nothing. Should they be allowed to work there? Yes, I should. Because
Yes.
the two things are not linked.
So
unless you make them.
I'm going to bring the chat into the screen, so because there's quite a few chat comments coming in. So let me just bring that in.
Oh, can you see it?
Yeah, it's on the screen now. Have you got it on your phone? So you, whilst you're in your posh room.
Critical Cupcake, hi. Roger Plankton,
yeah, so we've got
hi.
Roger, Critical Cupcake. We've got somebody called Miss Freda Wallace. Don't know who she is. Somebody called Stream Elements. Don't know who they are.
The Soir Boutique.
The Soir Boutique is here. Hi, ladies. Cup of coffee. Thank you very
correctly.
much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, so thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us, and thanks for commenting.
I'll
leave it on the screen because then everybody can see what other people are putting, can't they?
So this week. So it's been International Women's Day. It's been International Women's History Month. So what has happened is, to capitalise on this day, certain, gender criticals, namely Kathleen Stock, has got on Woman's Hour today.
Oh yeah, let's
talk about.
It was awful.
What was it called? Lesbian. What's she calling it?
They started a new organisation. I can't remember the exact name. Hang on, I can look it up. You keep talking. I'll look it up while you're talking.
So anyway, yeah, we know that the BBC and Women's Hour especially have got a bit of a history of platforming prominent gender criticals. And Kathleen Stock has been on there before. We know Emma Barnett. I think Emma Barnett is off at the moment. I think she's on maternity leave. But Emma Barnett is very much sympathetic, I would say, to the GC view. And I come to that conclusion because of the amount of GC gender criticals that she platforms.
Okay, I found the name. I found what it's called. It's called the Lesbian Project.
The Lesbian Project. So what are they doing?
Let me just read out what it says in the tweet. I mean, it's the Lesbian Project themselves are tweeted. We are the Lesbian Project. Are delighted to have Martina Navratilova as our patron.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, great start. So it was on BBC Radio 4 today. They've got people like Julie Bindel. Stock. There's pretty much, it's a who's who of transphobia, who are running this thing.
I mean, sorry, I just come in because what they're doing really, instead of being honest and saying they're transphobic, or they're never going to say that. So they have to find ways in which trans women can be excluded. And one of the ways they do it is they'll say trans women can't be lesbians because you don't identify into being a lesbian.
Actually, you've frozen up. Okay, you're moving again. You froze up for a minute.
Oh, sorry. What did you miss there? Because I don't want anybody to miss.
I could hear you, but your image froze. But you're okay. Keep going. Sorry.
So what I'm saying is, with this
Roger's put a funny
project,
comment. Have you seen that comment from Roger?
I can't see it.
The Lesbian Project would be a better name for a program rock band. Yeah.
Okay. I thought Lesbian Erasure was going to be a band, but I forgot.
Oh, Sarah's on the call on the thing too.
Hi, Sarah.
Cancelled so hard they got straight into the Telegraph and on the BBC. Yeah.
Yeah. So what the BBC are doing here, knowingly, is creating an instance where trans women, especially trans women, they never mention trans men, are excluded from being, because the fact is, right, if I'm intimate with a woman, being me, it's got nothing to do with anybody else, how I identify. That's my autonomous decision. If I say I'm a lesbian, then I'm not claiming the word. I'm describing a situation. So if a woman is intimate with me, it's up to her if she describes herself as a lesbian, bisexual, or whatever. You can't control the way people express themselves. That's what it comes down to. So while they could make an argument that says, if you're not biologically a woman, you can't be a lesbian because there's something innate about being a lesbian that is linked to your sexual organs. You could possibly make that argument. But
the way I look at it is, be yourself, whatever your identity is, whatever your gender identity is, be yourself, and whoever you fancy or fancies you, have fun with that. There's nothing more to it. It's that simple.
Yeah. So
no one's being erased.
So they can, true. But they can make that argument. But the argument is a puritanical one. The argument is an authoritarian one because it seeks to define something by biology. Now, when you do that, it's like what I said last night at the conference, whatever you call it. But to me, it's an argument. The panel, the thing to me, it's about either autonomy or anatomy. Now, do you want to define your life and your experience of the world through your anatomy? Do we do that as human beings? No, we don't, generally. There are times when your anatomy will indicate or be the driver of what you do, but we don't express ourselves because of that. We express ourselves through our autonomous navigation, understanding of social situations. It's like I always say, biology is your hardware and gender is your software. And people communicate with the program you're running. It's like when men are misogynistic towards me, they don't care what my biology is underneath this dress or whatever I'm wearing. They see me as the thing I'm projecting out into the world.
Yeah.
Right. So if a man is threatening to me, it doesn't matter to him whether I'm a trans woman or a cis woman.
Yeah, he would have no idea. So he's just doing it because you're a woman.
I'm not saying that they're the same because there will be differences.
Yeah.
But the argument that Kathleen Stock is making in her book Material Girl,
that's a bit different to what they're doing with this lesbian project. I know what you're saying, but there's really no reason for this lesbian project that they've started. It's pointless. If you look at what's in the website they've started, it's such a. It's like, why are you bothering?
But it only exists to exclude trans. It doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't because
one of the really interesting things I think that was touched on last night was the fact that younger people, like, they don't really identify in the same way as these kind of old-fashioned, I'll call them people in the 50s, lesbians. The younger people these days, they identify as queer. They're not.
Yeah, because that's the
Yeah, because it's more
that's
inclusive.
The social reality.
Yeah.
Because we've got to remember that a lot of the words that we use to describe ourselves come out of academia. So we're sometimes using words that don't really fit the flow of our social conversations. Like I wouldn't use the word cis in a conversation with friends, but we need a way in academic text. You need the way to delineate, and I think that's different when people are talking online. There's a bit of blending and a bit of mix-up between academic language and when you're just having a informal conversation. Now, I don't identify as trans. That just happens to be something I am. I identify as Freda female.
Exactly.
Trans is not an identity for me. Although I might say, I'm a trans woman because that delineates, that opens
describes
the conversation.
What kind of woman you are.
It describes my experience. Like, because there are trans women who I know who call themselves a woman with a transsexual past, and that's how they think, because nobody's referring to them as a transgender person, or nobody's referring to them as a trans woman in social situations. They just call a she, her, miss, madam, all the gendered social politenesses. Is that a word? Politenesses.
Politenesses. Well, it is now.
social, what do you call it? Etiquette. Social etiquette is what is our language. So if you wanted to be an arse about it, and you spotted a trans woman or a trans man, and you went up to them and go, "You're not really a woman, are you?" Right? I mean, there might be some truth to that, but you don't go up to somebody and say it. You know what I mean? Unless you're a complete arse. And what is the value in saying it? Because trans women know their past. You don't have to remind us.
Sarah's making a good point there. LGBT Alliance has lost credibility, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is the new Tufton Street replacement. Referring to the lesbian project.
Interestingly,
I mean, it could be, couldn't it?
I want to say, Vicky, right, on my blog, on Medium, I was talking about Tufton Street 2 years ago. I'm not saying this because I'm some kind of a Nostradamus, but the reason I was talking about...
Jeez. Freda Nostradamus. There's a thought.
The reason I was talking about... Are you going to let me finish this point?
Go on then.
The reason I was talking about...
Have you finished
Tufton
it?
Street is... honestly, the reason I was talking about Tufton Street is because I recognised, because I was Roger knows this. Roger knows, right? Because we listen to talk radio, and every guest, when I researched every single guest, there was one common link, and it was something to do with Tufton Street. And I linked those lobby groups. That's why I was linking those lobby.
It would be interesting to see how long they have actually been in existence. I mean, I don't know the complete history of Tufton Street, how far it goes back and when it was started. I'm not sure.
Well, the first I heard about it was through Greg. You know Cambridge Analytica?
Yeah, I'm sure that's linked in there somewhere.
Well, they go back way back. You've got Henry Jackson Society, the New Culture Forum, the Heritage Foundation.
Roger says you're getting spicy.
Gladstone Institute. And what they're all ultra-conservative, like right-wing Christian authoritarians who just, they're led by a kind of weird...
Yeah, I mean...
I don't...
Critical Cupcake has made a point there. Does this mean that LGBA is about to lose charity status? Yeah, quite possibly. Let's keep our fingers crossed on that one.
Well, that's...
I mean, but if that means they're going to get replaced with this new lesbian project, I mean, that is quite possible.
But that excludes a lot of people. If they want lesbians...
It's kind of morphing into another organisation because the other one's collapsed,
Yeah, because they know it's been proven that the LGBT Alliance, most of their members are not gay, or they might be bisexual. That's hard to prove, isn't it? How do you work that one out? But they're not of the LGBT spectrum. They're just people that have, they see a way to control a narrative against trans or queer people, whatever that is, and it goes back to gay conservatism, because there's always been gay people that are embarrassed, almost repulsed by the idea of drag queens, repulsed by the idea of gay people being flamboyant and being creative, because they're just gay conservatives. They don't, and the way they think they're going to protect themselves from discrimination is by being, undistinguishable from anybody else. And that is why, because they when they see people like, RuPaul or the drag queens on RuPaul's Drag Race, they want to distance themselves from that because they feel that is embarrassing to their sensibilities. So being gay doesn't necessarily make you open-minded. It makes you Andrew Doyle. Do you know what I mean?
Right. So
it goes back to Stonewall, doesn't it?
It does. All right. So we've kind of, I think we've thrashed that one to death. Activism. The other topic we were going to talk about today was activism, wasn't it? This one, I mean, it's kind of come up because we've both noticed there's been lots of kind of fracturing going on within the community, along lines of young versus old, political lines. types of activism that some groups do and some other groups don't approve of. It kind of, political stance kind of comes into it as well. So, I've noticed a lot of fractures.
Well, you see,
and it's kind of, it's not. I mean, I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying I've noticed it going on, and I guess really you would expect to see this in any group of people. You're going to see different opinions and fighting between, different groups within a group. So we're not this homogenous group at all. Well, we shouldn't think that we are, because we're definitely not. But I just wanted to have a kind of a discussion around what are the types of activism that we should probably be focusing on, which produce the best results in terms of how effective they are.
Well, see, my kind of activism and the thing that motivates me is I'm all up for a big fight in the street. I love.
You are the girl who walks around Manchester with a megaphone.
I don't want people to get hurt. Don't get me wrong, but I think when I see people rising up, and I don't want to see people fighting. No,
but it's kind of like your kind of activism, and I've kind of witnessed some of it. It is like in your face, and you do it through art, you do it through poetry, you do it through spoken word events.
That's the difference.
You do it in the street with a megaphone, which is part of the act. So it's like it's very in your face activism. Now, some people would probably go, "Oh hell, what's this?" It's like it's too much. Other people love it, but I guess how effective is it? What are we trying to do with that kind of activism? Are you trying to kind of get everybody on side, or are you preaching to the choir? I mean, when you go to an event which is kind of a queer event, everybody there's is going to be applauding you because it's what they want to hear. But there's probably not going to be people there who've not heard it before, So it's in terms of effective activism, you're just talking to people who already know that stuff. You're not changing anybody else's mind because they're not there.
But I don't think you can. I think I do the things I do are community. I'm interested in community activism.
Yeah.
So when people are in numbers and they approach, because I still believe, perhaps naively, in approaching your politician, approaching your member of parliament. I still believe in petitions, and I still believe there's some value in that. But for a lot of, like, I've been involved in protests, nothing to do with being trans. It's to do with anti-fascism, and it's to do with immigration and people targeting Muslim people in my community. And I've been involved, and those things can be really violent. And what can happen is you've got a bunch of fascists over here and a bunch of anti-fascists over here, and they're just fighting, and then people are walking around trying to do the shopping, going, I don't want anything to do with that. Right?
Yeah, they just see a bunch of people fighting, don't they? They don't understand the issue.
Because it's like the anti-fascists and the fascists are just having a big fight, and the police are obviously there and exacerbate everything. And this is not to diminish that. I think when people rise up, they're rising up against the government. They're rising up against authority. And this country has a very high tolerance. Like, we're very open in this country. The right to protest is still upheld. So you can have a very intense protest. You can have almost a riot, and then the police will let it.
They'll let it happen to a certain extent, yeah.
But we don't. But in some countries, like you see in Georgia, right? You see in Georgia last night, where the police will get water cannon out. The police will physically assault people because I know that's a completely different issue. I know the thing they're fighting for is
it's a little bit more civilized here, I guess.
It's anti-Russian sentiment there. So I don't. There's a lot of minutiae of that I'm not qualified to address there. But what I'm talking about, protests in general. But what the thing is with trans protests, there's just not enough of trans people.
Hang on, but protesting like a protest, that's one type of activism. I mean, there's a whole list of things that you could consider to be activism. This podcast is activism in a way, isn't it? We come on here and we get agitated about issues and we have these discussions.
I do.
Yeah. And we do the other podcast on the Sunday where we're talking about news issues, and we do this one when we're talking just like you and me about what's going on.
But you know, I like to go on the telly and I like to get in the
Yeah,
way
you
of
go
that
on the telly, you go
conversation.
on things like GB News and those things, and you get agitated on there. And I'm not sure how effective that is. I'm not sure. Let's look at this podcast, for example. It goes out once or twice a week, depending on our availabilities, and we've had quite a lot of people, interact with it and watch it and listen to the podcast, which is on like a traditional podcast audio thing. So yeah, it's got quite a lot of kind of traction in that sense. But is it doing any good? Is it helping?
Well,
is it helping trans
I
rights? We don't really know the outcome, do we? Because we don't see the effect of it. We've been on the radio and spoken about it. We don't know what the effect of that was. So it's how do you measure it? I don't know. How do you measure it?
See, when I listen to podcasts and when I've listened to radio shows, and I am a massive fan of speech radio, and I feel less alone. I feel like I'm less. Sometimes I feel completely insane, like nobody agrees with me. And if you listen to the daily drone of news, if you listen to the uncritical, unfettered opinions of the mainstream, it can feel like you are the outsider. So when I do this, I'm inspired by people I used to listen to, quite marginal figures who didn't have a big audience, but they were speaking. I thought they were speaking to me and me alone at that time, and they might have had a big, because they're on national radio, like people like Terry Christian. I'm going back to when I was in my teens. I listened to the talk radio and people like James Stanage. I don't know if you've heard of James Stanage, but James Stanage was like he did a phone in. He did like a radio phone in, and people would come and.
I know there was something like many years ago. It was, I don't know who it was, but it was a phone in. All kinds of people would phone in with the most weird and wonderful things, and they would just talk about it. It was quite fun.
But I used to really like James Whale. I mean, it's just a shame now because I think James has. I mean, I don't know if he's on Talk TV now, and I feel like he's kind of burnt himself out.
I think what I'm talking about was on Piccadilly back in the 80s. I can't remember what it's called.
What's he called?
I can't remember what his name was. It was on kind of late night.
Alan Bezic.
Yeah, something like that. It was late night. It was probably like 2 or 3 hours, like 11 till 1 in the morning or something.
So like what we do here.
But anyway,
right?
Yeah.
I feel like
going off track.
I feel like we're preserving moments in time. And my hope is that in 10 years' time, I'll look back and watch this and go, bloody hell, things were awful then. I'm so glad they're better now. Right? That's the hope. Right?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. There could be somebody out there who's listening to this who gets something from it and it gives them a bit of confidence, maybe. I mean, I hope that's the case. I don't know.
Well, actually, yeah.
But maybe there's some trans person out there who's still, stuck in the closet, listens to us, and it gives them some confidence. I don't know. Let's hope so.
Don't use us as role models.
Yeah, don't use Freda as a role model anyway.
No, seriously though, when I do gigs and when I've been on the wider media, I have people inbox me.
Roger says Whale has totally lost it. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, he has. But when I go out and I outside of my online little bubble, people comment to me and say it's almost as if they wish they had. Maybe it's I have no sense of embarrassment. Maybe I've got to the point now where I just don't care anymore. But when I go on stage and I do my spoken word thing, sometimes people say, "Oh God, I wish I had the confidence to do that." And I feel like part of them is saying, I wish I had the confidence to make a tit of myself like you do.
It does take a lot of confidence to do those, some of the things that you do. I mean, spoken word and, some of those performances you do. I mean, not a lot of people would have the confidence to do those.
But I consider it all the same thing. Like when I go on GB News, and in a way, when I'm doing this, I'm kind of performing, aren't I? I mean, I'm aware that people are watching. I'm being a bit, irreverent and saying silly things. So this is part of my protest. My activism and protest is all about, communication.
What was that film where they kept saying, "Are we an effective team?" It was some.
Oh God!
What film was it? It was some sci-fi film. Can't remember what it's called now. But it's like the main character who was in control of everything was, it was via a computer, and it was like, are we an effective team? Somebody watching,
somebody might know.
Might know what the hell I'm talking about. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, it kind of just makes me think like what we're talking about here. Are we an effective team, Freda?
I think we are. I mean, you do talk over me and don't let me finish my points, but I'll let answer.
Like probably the first time ever. I'm just getting my own back for all the previous 35 episodes.
One day we're gonna do this podcast where we're both in the same room, and I can reach over and I can strangle you.
I am in control of the mute button, so watch out.
I tell you what, I do want to do. I want to do this live. We're going to do a live.
We should do a live one. I'm just trying to think of where we could do it.
In the Feel Good Club in Manchester.
Yeah, okay.
The lady that runs it.
We need to have some topics up our sleeves, won't we? So we don't run out of things to talk about. But yeah. So anyway, back to the list of activism. So what other kinds of activism do you think are not helping? Let's start with the ones that aren't helping. Like, what do you think about these ninjas fully dressed in black, face covered? We've seen them around Manchester a few times. What's your opinion of that?
Well, what you've seen on Twitter, I assume, is the Black Bloc.
Yeah,
and the Black Bloc they're anti-fascists, and they go undercover because they. So is
that just to protect their identity?
Is to protect their identity, and they form a line between the fascists, as they see them, and the people who are on the anti-fascist side.
Okay. Now, so I mean, I'm sure what they're doing is, for the right reasons.
The optics of it.
The optics are terrible.
The optics of it.
The optics are terrible, and that is what I'm concerned about. I mean, it's probably not the right thing to be concerned about, but I'm concerned about optics. I'm concerned about how that looks to somebody who doesn't know who they are, doesn't know what's going on, and sees this other group. I mean, we've seen this in Manchester doing some kind of protest, and then you've got the ninjas there doing what they do, and in one case they were preventing them getting near the Emmeline statue in Manchester near the library there. Yeah,
but that you've got to remember though.
So I know that's slightly out of context. But somebody walking past who has no idea what's going on, they're going to see these people dressed in black, and they're going to think that they're the bad guys.
Yeah, but that's not the fault of those people.
No, but that's the optics of it.
But no, what you're talking about there is a very specific incident, and that was when Kelly J. Keane came to Manchester.
Yeah, that's one of the.
There were people within Kelly J. Keane's group who were actively trying to incite violence, and the people in the black who don't want their identities showing were preventing violence.
Yeah, but none of that to the passerby, none of that is explained. None of that is obvious. None of that is understood, and that's how it can probably, if a woman's walking past with her husband and kids, they're going to say, okay, let's just avoid that. What is that? Let's stay away from it.
But they don't.
There's no sign. There was no signs. There was no nothing. It's like, what is it? Is it effectively helping trans rights?
No, but you see, the people that care about those, like, I understand what you're saying because people like Julie.
I'm playing devil's advocate here a little bit, so
people like Julie Bindle will call them the Black Panthers and start posting pictures of that, and obviously that plays badly in the media because they already weaponize whatever they could get anyway. So as soon as they see something looking threatening, right? But that doesn't represent anything other than that moment, right? There was a famous artist duo called the Chapman Brothers, and one of their art pieces was to walk around London with a board that says, "Say no to bad things," right? And that was their say no to bad things.
So they weren't protesting anything particularly, just an art protest. with that slogan.
Yeah, because when the public see protests, by and large, when they come into the news, they're not entrenched in the debate. They don't understand the debate. They don't understand why people are coming together like that. So the public say, okay, there's these people that are saying no to something, and there's other people that are saying no to something, and both of them think it's a bad thing. So who's right, right? So it should be up to the media. It should be the media's job to work that out, but they don't. They go for that one moment. They go for that one money shot. Like if there's ever a picture of a protest, the thing that will make it to the front page is the bit where the fist goes in.
Yeah, the money shot, the shot that's going to get the attention and the clicks, and
it'll be where
it's going to match up with the media company's agenda. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, and it'll be the moment where somebody sets fire to a car, right? Now that's got nothing to do with why people are protesting, and it's the same energy that that's why I think that's what you're saying, that when those the ninjas, the black bloc, doing that, they're playing into, they're not doing it deliberately, but they get chosen as the image for that moment. And I agree with you, it can be bad.
I mean, if you don't understand what's going on, you will get the wrong impression.
But a lot of the power of the gender critical movement is in the fact that the public don't understand what is going on, because they can always say, we're standing for women, we want to keep prisons single sex, we want to protect women's sports, we want to keep single sex spaces in rape centres. They don't give a shit about any of those things. The only motivation for framing that is because they want to find an instance where they can be trans exclusionary and make it seem like a moral.
That is understood. Yeah,
it's to make it seem like a moral, like they have the moral authority. So any bits where, say, I was to go to a protest and kick somebody, that would be the bit. It'd be me kicking somebody that would be in the paper, and they'd be, Freda Wallace, trans rights activist.
You heard it here first.
Kicks an innocent woman.
Here first. And then there was another incident that was filmed all over Twitter recently, I would never kick anybody. Which was another protest where people were chanting "Smash a turf, a fascist bleeds." Now again,
you've got to.
Same thing. It's probably not good optics. You've got. I think that's probably not the right wording to use.
I don't think you. I don't. Right, with respect. Right,
no, but you know what I mean. Optics.
You're not. The reason, right? You've heard about that. The only reason you've heard about that is because somebody wants to weaponize it.
Yeah.
Now, what was it? Cut a turf, whatever.
It was smash a turf, as in hit them. A fascist bleeds.
Exactly, but it's a metaphor, isn't it?
It is. But I'm once again thinking of somebody who doesn't know the situation.
Yeah,
sees that, and it will make them think negatively towards the people saying that.
Yeah, but you can't think like that.
No, but you have to think like that because it's the reality in a lot of cases.
No, because the only reason you know about that is because of the people weaponizing it. Like so when you say, okay, let's all be sweet and nice and not use metaphor, not use artistic language.
No, what I'm saying is it? No, let's just go back to the question here, and the question is it an effective form of protest? What's the outcome of that protest? Does it do the right thing? Are the optics good?
Yes, because what I would say is real thinking people that understand the situation, people that actually weigh in the balance of history what is right and wrong, they'll look at something like what Pussy Riot do. Now we know when that comes to the media, it looks like, who are these women that look completely insane in balaclavas and stockings and suspenders running around screaming? That's what the media sees. But people that know what the message is, they will write about it.
So I think what we're saying is if we need to be really clear on what the messaging is, so that people do understand.
No, you don't.
You need to understand the real message.
Yeah, but in the heat of a protest, in the heat of confrontation...
No, I'm not talking
you
about
can't
people
go-
there at the time. I'm talking about people watching it on social media afterwards.
but we don't...
They need to understand what it's about. Now, if we look at another kind of protest, if we look at the cabaret against the hate speech, their kind of protest, it's song and dance. I mean, it doesn't look like it's going to offend anybody or upset anybody. It's all fun. It's fun and happy.
Yeah, because
for me, that's much more effective.
Yeah, it's effective, but
it's more effective than the other two things we just spoke about, because you're not creating that angst feeling in people who don't understand.
Right. Okay. Let me just.
So let's just talk about that. The other way of doing it.
Right. So I will concede to that, because what I was describing before is when you've got two factions that have met each other. It's like the unstoppable force and the immovable object. They're not going to have a good time when they meet, are they? But if you have like what was happening in Glasgow, where they had people are naturally attracted to something joyous.
Exactly.
And that's the power of that. But it doesn't mean that the people who are doing the counter protest or the people they're reacting against are going to stop doing what they're doing.
No, they probably would. Either way, it probably makes no difference to the people doing the negative protest that the other groups there to anti-protest against. So we got. I mean, in this particular case, it was the same. It was the same people that were being protested against, but the anti-protest was completely different. One was ninjas and chanting, and the other one was cabaret against the hate speech. So you've got two totally different approaches, which for me give a different. It kind of gives you different optics, and which is more effective? Which gave the better message? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I would say that one with the joyous dancing.
Yeah, it comes across better, doesn't it? Don't you think?
But it doesn't get the media coverage.
This is true. I'll give you that. It doesn't get the media coverage at all. No.
And Peter Tatchell and people like that.
Now you see, Peter Tatchell's form of protest, I really like the way Peter does it, because
he's an individual.
He's an individual. He normally does it on his own, or he'll join in with a group. But it's really effective because it's always on the news when he does it.
I think I discovered the core difference between me and you, Victoria.
Go on.
You're a neoliberal.
Careful.
You're a neoliberal, right? I'm a communist, right? I believe in you're right. You believe in the packaging of things, right? Whereas I'm not interested in the containment of things, and I want the world to burn.
I think you might be onto something, but not in the way you've framed it.
Can I just pick up on a comment?
Peter Tatchell's protests are not always. He doesn't always do it in a nice, sweet, friendly way. He's stood in the way. He puts himself in danger. He puts himself in the right in the path of something that could really really nasty thing that could happen to him. He doesn't back down. But that's I think his is kind of like between the two others that we just mentioned. I think his is kind of in the middle somewhere.
Well, Vicky, with respect,
it's still effective.
I think sometimes Vicky, you're a bit too nice, and I'm when it comes to protests and stuff, I love anarchy. I love anything that
you're an anarchist.
I'm not an anarchist, really. Honestly, I'm not. But I respect the people that are. Can I just pick up on a comment?
Yeah, go for it.
Mercy Ferrell, I think it's Ferrell. I'd like a new peace and love movement that could include ninjas.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe that's the answer.
So, I think the thing is, though, the peace and when I look at the history of protests, and I've done quite a lot of reading about it. In the 60s, there was, they had the love-ins where they would just have. I think what you were describing, what's happening in Glasgow with the cabaret against fascism, against gender criticals, that's like a peace and love kind of loving.
Yeah.
right? But we know historically those don't change policy, and but also by the same
They may not
token,
change policy, but they may help with public opinion.
But no, I don't know if they do,
Well, we don't know because we've not actually got any data on the effect of what they've done. I mean, who knows what the effect of what they did in Glasgow that day had on people who saw it? Did it make people think, oh, look at this? They're protesting against these nasty people. I'm going to support them.
No, but yeah,
does it help our allies? Does it help allies to become allies? I don't know. It's just like we're having the discussion, aren't we? We're trying to understand it.
Yeah, because neither of us. That's the point. Neither of us know the answer. Neither of us. We're not Russell Brand.
No.
Neither of us have got an idea of how to fix.
No, but I think everybody agrees that whatever we do needs to be effective, right? We need
have to do it communally.
We need to be the effective team.
We have to be I'm quite willing to be wrong, to risk being completely wrong to get to somewhere I think might be a better place, right? So I don't know if the way I do things is right, and I don't know if every one of my opinions is correct, and I don't know if I'm politically correct, and I don't know if I'm always an advocate, but I hope that I listen to enough people and I collect enough information that when I do say something, it isn't without meaning.
Yeah, no,
that's it. Do you know what I mean? So when I say, I love it when people challenge me. Like if somebody comes up to me and says, that was interesting what you said, but here's why it's bullshit. That is exciting to me.
Yeah.
Because it means somebody's thinking about what I've said. Now, if somebody came up to me and said, oh, yeah, you're definitely right. Everything you said is perfect. Everything you said there is 100%. I'd be like,
yeah, I'm not doing enough. Yeah, I'm doing something wrong.
I'm doing something wrong. But this is why I like people like, the Trans Safety Project. Mallory Moore is absolutely brilliant, right? Yeah. Because she will read something and she will see the flaw in it.
I mean, she's really good at reading something, getting straight to the point. And most people won't even see it.
But she's like...
It's like a laser beam.
Well, yeah, but I disagree with Mallory on lots of things. But that's the point. We're not supposed to agree.
No, but sometimes if we go back to the conversation where we started, these fracture lines, which can, cause little rifts within the community,
right,
are sometimes based on what those people are doing and saying based on their kind of activism. And, we need to all work together and maybe understand each other's differences in terms of what we do. And we're all fighting for the same thing. We probably do it in different ways and we get different results. But is it really worth the infighting when someone's doing something a bit different? Even though you may not agree with it 100%, maybe let them do it and see how it goes.
You see, a lot of people talk about fairness, right? And they want the world to be a fair place, and they don't want people to be poor, and they want people. But when you provide people with solutions to those problems, and they realise when the world is fair, I will have less. It's the people that know they will have less in a fair world that will fight you for that, because it's like we know that. Like here's a good example. Bernie Sanders. When Bernie Sanders was running for office, when was it? 2015, the Trump election?
2 elections ago, I think, yeah.
Now, people were going out the way to destroy him because they knew that their world was going to get fairer. They knew if he was in charge, the world was going to get a little bit, even a tiny bit more fair. And that would make less billionaire a billionaire, right? And that was the end. And it's the same energy in this country when Corbyn was running, because the one thing they're fucking frightened of is the world being fair. Now, politicians always lie and say we're doing this, we're charitable, we're trying to do things for the good of society. Actually, most of them are not. They're doing things for business interests. And that's what basically the Tory party is, right? So where am I going with this?
No, but we were talking about the fractions within the LGBT community, and especially within the trans community, where we fight infighting.
Yes, so that's where I was going with this, right? So now, because we're living in a very ultra conservative political climate, where you don't have to say very much to be an activist. You can say,
This is true. Yeah.
I think trans people should have healthcare provided at point of service, and every town should have a doctor or a psychologist available for trans people. That is not a radical notion.
No, but the kind of thing I mean is like you'll get one group saying, you'll say so-and-so sports person is a threat to the community, so we shouldn't talk to them. And then you get another group saying, well, we need to talk to them because, we need to change them. So there's there's a disagreement around how to handle the situation and what to do. And then there's a bit of infighting. I mean, it's probably natural to happen, but it kind of takes you away from what you were supposed to be doing together, collectively collaborating, is working together to better trans rights. But sometimes it goes wrong and we infight, and I think it's kind of based on what people think is the best kind of activism and how effective it is. I think that's what it comes down to. I think you just went down a rabbit hole there.
I think we're infighting at the moment.
No, we're not. We're just discussing the differences.
I am fully aware that I'm going off on that's how my brain works, unfortunately.
No, that's fine.
But I am wired. I am absolutely furious today because I'm very upset about what's happened to Gary Lineker.
That's our last topic. We should probably get onto that because we've been nattering away here for an hour already. So yeah.
Can I just I know I'm very aware of the fact that I am very animated today, and I'm not really letting you get a word in edgeways. What was I going to say? Yeah, Gary Lineker,
Where's
right?
That mute button again. Yeah, go on.
Maybe we should go back to the red and yellow card.
Oh, I've still got them. They're here. What?
Yeah, but when we started doing this podcast, Vicky said, when I get you a yellow card, that's when you're veering off topic. I think I've been.
You've veered off topic quite a lot today, but anyway, it's been entertaining.
I'm interested in people in the chat, like
they've gone quiet. I think they're all stunned.
Any sense whatsoever? But
Critical Cupcake has set fire to the chat, so that's.
Yeah, so interesting, isn't it? That Gary Lineker. Gary
Lineker. So yeah, I mean, if you've not heard about the Gary Lineker thing, what did he say? He was responding to Sue Ellen Braverman's new illegal immigration law, and I've saved it in my phone here. Can you remember what he said, Freda? I've lost the word.
Well, he said it basically is comparing what the government are doing about immigration, because Rishi came up on the podium that said stop the boats.
What he did, his first post against the Home Office post where Suella Braverman is explaining this law. He goes, "Good heavens, this is beyond awful." That's his first comment. And then I think later on,
I think that's just about Suella Braverman in general. She's beyond awful.
Yeah, I'm trying to find what he said. I
don't know. Suella Braverman, she just comes across as like somebody that you wouldn't trust with a pair of scissors. You know what I mean? It's like, don't give her any responsibility in government. She's just not. Anyway, so Gary Lineker, bless him, he's a good egg. He
was saying that what they were saying sounded very much like what was being said in Germany in 1930. And he's right. It does. It does sound very much like what was being said in Germany in the 1930s. And then Suella Braverman is now accusing him of all kinds of things around, you're comparing it to, the Nazis, etc., etc.
Now, there's a very important point to make here. Now, I'm always very nervous when talking about fascism, because fascism is real, right? And when you start comparing contemporary issues with stuff that happened in the 30s and 40s, you've got to be careful, because if you start, I'm not saying Gary Lineker has done this, but if you start comparing the Holocaust to, because the thing with that is the Holocaust isn't an event that happened in history. It's the collective memory of Jewish people. It's the collective trauma of people.
Well, Suella Braverman is accusing him of belittling it. And he's not doing that. He was just saying it sounds very much like that.
But that's what I was going to say about Suella Braverman. What Suella is doing is saying she's trying to get Jewish groups involved and say, she's trying to make out that Gary Lineker is anti-Jewish, and he's not. Yeah. So Jews are being used again by Suella Braverman. So every time this comes up about people are comparing things to the Holocaust, you are traumatizing people that have a collective memory from that point in history, which cannot. I understand that fascism is incremental. When we see people talking about immigrants as a problem, like that has to be solved, and it's the same rhetoric about trans people and other marginalized groups, like I'd even say the Romani gypsies and travellers get the same treatment, and obviously black people and other ethnic groups in this country, they get treated like they're a problem. Then that is the sliding scale that leads to the dehumanization of people. Now, unfortunately, it's something within our human psyche, and none of us are exempt from it, that we judge people. Now, when you judge people, you're doing it, it depends on the reason you're doing it. And it's like, I don't believe for 1 minute that when somebody says, when they criticize the government and say what they're doing is akin to Nazism or whatever, I don't think they believe that. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to load their opinion with something so awful, because everybody knows Hitler was awful, right? So when you bring Hitler into the conversation, the argument is over, right? It's over. You can't go anywhere after you've said. It's like saying, Nigel Farage, he's the same as Hitler. No, because that's the end of that's not the argument. The argument is about that human, that bit of us, that bit of all of us.
But if we just forget about the actual words Gary used, and the fact that he's saying, this is really bad, what the government is doing here, it is awful. But then if you look at how the BBC is responding to what Gary said, they're going to take him in for a quiet word, because he's said something that, that he's being accused of being, he's not being neutral.
The thing is, the BBC
had he come out and agreed with what Suella Braverman said and agreed with the government's position on this new law, you wouldn't have heard a thing from the BBC. They wouldn't have said a word.
I know.
So
no, but this is the problem with the BBC. I've said this before, that because the presenters, it doesn't really apply to Gary Lineker because he's not really a news presenter.
Well, he's not an employee either. He works for several sports channels.
But the BBC remit is like, for somebody like a political commentator, is you don't have an opinion. Now, what that creates is a gap in the market, right, for lobby groups, because they'll approach presenters and say, we've got this opinion and you should platform us in the interests of balance. So they'll have like a climate activist, somebody who's clearly done the research, a proper scientist, and because they need to have balance, they'll have some politician from a lobby or somebody from a lobby group that just has no scientific background whatsoever to have a conversation with somebody who's a scientist. And that's the problem with the BBC. It's not that. I confess, right?
The confession. Freda's confession time.
I love the BBC. The reason I love the BBC, to me, it's like a library, right? If I wanted to find something out, if I wanted to look at a science documentary, a biology documentary, an art documentary, a history documentary, the BBC would be the first place I would go, because they employ really bloody good people in those areas, right? But when it comes to news, when it comes to current affairs, when it comes to opinion, they're fucking useless.
Well, they're always going on about they have to be neutral and blah blah blah. But Gary said something that isn't neutral. I'm just wondering what would have happened if he'd said something where, oh yeah, I agree with the government. Would they have the same reaction? Well, we know they wouldn't. We know they wouldn't have done that.
No,
they would. They would
Vicky,
have not followed their own rules in that particular case. So that suggests that they are influenced by the government, and I strongly believe they are.
Did you see what?
And then you look at like the chairman, and the loans he's given to Boris. He's like, what the hell's going on there?
Did you see what Roger said?
Roger,
he said he'd say some. I'd say something, but Freda will just interrupt me.
Yeah, that's true, Roger. Roger, please come on the show. Have a go. have the full experience. Yeah.
Yeah, the reason this works is because when me and Vicky meet in real life, we have this exact same conversation, and she can't hit me when we're doing it.
So Mercy Farrell, I think what I meant is that we need to start positive, to not let the negativity get the best of us. I see that righteous anger has its place also. I'm working on a riot playlist just in case.
You see, another reason I like the BBC.
Oh, we don't need to go into the reasons why we like the BBC. This is not what this podcast is about,
No, but I do want to say the music. Like if you listen to like some of the bands and
you know what's good about the BBC? Tomorrow's World was pretty good. Top of the Pops was pretty good.
Top of the Pops.
Remember that?
Hell.
I'm just showing my age now.
Well, I mean, let's not dwell on the BBC.
No, please, let's not.
But I think I kind of lost the plot, didn't I, when I was going on about...
You've lost the plot? I don't believe it.
I've just, you know what? I've drunk that while we've been on.
Oh, here we go. Here's me drinking water.
So, where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here? Well, we're out of topics. That's it. We've done our hour.
No, we're not. We've not finished yet.
Oh, come on, carry on. Where do we go as a community?
I'm fielding comments. I want people listening to tell us.
Yeah, I mean, people who are watching on the chat. What's your favourite kind of activism? What do you do? I mean, what do you think?
And as a trans, I think sometimes as a trans person, trans woman, whatever I identify as this week, when I go out, I'm sometimes a protest, just being myself.
Just Freda is a walking protest.
Whether I want to be or not.
You know what's happened to me sometimes? I've been challenged by certain people as to what do you do? What's your activism? What have you been doing?
Vicky.
That's what sometimes happens. I've crashed. What do you mean?
Oh no, you're back.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So I've been challenged.
It might be.
I've been challenged. Like, what are you doing? What's your activism? What you're not doing enough. Do some more. I've had that. I'm thinking, back off. I do my thing. You know what I mean? It's like each to their own, really, isn't it? When it comes to activism, what are you prepared to do? What do you want to do? What are you comfortable doing? I think that's important too, isn't it? It's like if you're not the kind of person who wants to go and do X, Y, Z, but you want to do this, well, go do that.
Well, I really want to challenge people in the media. Like I've contacted Talk TV many times, and I've said, when you have Kelly J. Keane on, please ring me.
Yeah, because
that's my protest.
Have a clash, don't you?
That's my protest.
Critical cupcake. Sorry, I can't even speak. Cupcake. I'll leave it to smarter people than me. Good answer. I never actually spoken to Freda before, even though we've known each other a little while now. But I think I'd be terrified.
I'm lovely,
Oh dear.
aren't I? Aren't I lovely in
She's
real
lovely.
life,
She's
Victor?
lovely. Absolutely.
I'm lovely.
You
I
can
only
you
get
can
angry
you can pay me
because I'm
later.
frustrated. Well, anyway, so I think you're going to see a lot of rising tension politically now. And there are going to be protests. There's going to be a moment, I think, where people take to the streets, and one thing that always annoys me about protests is it becomes a battle between the police and the police are not the enemy there, but they become the enemy because they create they sacrifice themselves for the power of the state. So like in all big protests, and people end up fighting with the police, don't they? They get the riot police out. And that is that's the clearest visual representation of the power of the state. It's like um, a civilian an army
Yeah.
within. So why don't we know? When are the police going to realize you're fighting the wrong fucking side?
Well, the police are the arm of the state, aren't they? In a lot of cases.
Yeah, but if they just stopped, if they just said like, we're not going to fight you.
They should be there as a referee, really.
Yeah.
Critical Cupcake, the best I can do is poke with counter narratives. Mercy for all. I try to engage with my community. I just try to be a nice person. Critical Cupcake giggles. Vicky was terrified, so I had to say that. Yep, that's true. How did we pronounce? Was it
Le Soir?
Yeah, Le Soir. That's it. Le Soir.
Le Soir.
I was struggling there. Le Soir Boutique. I guess just trying to exist. Yes, that is. I mean, yeah, just trying to exist. That's a really good point, because when somebody is kind of feeling the stress, they don't have the spoons. They're struggling just to survive on a day-to-day basis. Even if they're trans or not. It's really difficult to take that extra step to do activism as well. Can you imagine? That's difficult, isn't it? If you're in a situation where you don't feel as though you can do anything, and you're just surviving, that's a really good point.
Let's tell you a little story.
Go on, tell us a story.
Because a very famous activist bought me this book.
Yes, I recognise that. The Power of the Powerless. Yes, it's a great book. Have you started reading it yet?
I've read the back so far.
I won't take long.
And see, because I consider myself a writer, artist. I know it sounds pretentious, but I do. And my activism is a creative one. So this kind of book, because I want to write. Because I've talked about writing a manifesto of trans empowerment, and that's something I want to do.
But that book, I got 2 copies of that book. I gave one to Freda. So that book talks about, people who are powerless and they're in a system. It's a bit like 1984, and how they kind of are forced subconsciously just to go along with things. I mean, that book kind of talks about that and how to break out of it. So
that's where we are now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's where we are. It's it's quite an old book, but it's bang on for today's environment. You need to read it, Freda.
Well,
once you've read that, then you can write your manifesto.
Yeah, but I am going to write a manifesto.
Read the book first.
My idea is to write my version of a kind of emancipation, and when you come out and when you become accustomed to the world, like I talked about last night, about the idea of when I came out and I felt more confident. It's not about it's not like about being a revolutionary. It's nothing about that. It's about just being enough in the world. Like you don't have to be exceptional. You don't have to be a revolutionary. You don't have to be somebody people revere. You just have to be effective, and you just have to be, you know, normal, you know, in a way. That's my manifesto. It's not a manifesto of smashing things up. It's a manifesto of working with what you've got, really. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm interested in as an artistic thing, because obviously I remember reading about the French Revolution and all this, and it's like what's interesting about those times. It's like people think revolutions happened overnight. Like there was one version of the world, and then something happened, and then the world was different. No, it was incremental, but within those increments, there are important people along the way. Now,
see, art is a really good way to break through, isn't it? It really gets through to the individual.
And another thing is, the revolution must never end, because if you have a goal and then you achieve that goal, if you stop there, then you become a conservative. So you've got to keep wanting to, like, are you aware of Pussy Riot? Their protest, right? Because they say every artwork is a miniature revolution. Every action is a revolution, right? So I like that idea, because anybody can have a revolution. The revolution could be just getting out of fucking bed if you're depressed, and then suddenly you've overcome something. That's the thinking behind it. And it's not grand gestures. It's not about smashing down the gates of Westminster, although that would be good. It's about, you know, it's not about blowing things up. It's about setting off little sparklers. That's what I want to do, little sparklers.
Right, let's go and buy some sparklers.
I think I'm insane at the moment. I think I've got absolutely potty.
You've had a good rant tonight, I'll give you that. You definitely had a good rant.
This is what happened. This is what happens when I'm away from home for a few days.
See, when your mum's not there to keep control of you, you just don't have control. It's true. Right. Well, I think I think we've come to the end there.
I think I've come to the end of my brain.
I shall switch the.
Well, thanks for watching.
The topics off. Put us back to our full-size images. There we go.
And if you've got any ideas and you know about protests, about activism, please comment on the video. Please share the. Will it be up on YouTube straight away?
It's live, isn't it? So yeah.
Yeah. I just didn't know if you could share. Yeah, so share it and stuff.
Yeah.
And don't forget to subscribe.
Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to come back again next time and listen to more rantings from the lovely Freda and myself. So I think the next one might be on Sunday, but you're still in Manchester until then, aren't you?
I'm doing a spoken word event at the Arts Centre home on tomorrow.
So we might do the Sunday recording on Saturday afternoon if you're home, because I'm not available Sunday. Yeah. So yeah, we'll try and get it this weekend. If not, it'll be early next week. So
I'm doing a little kind of performance art thing in the street with Fee, my friend Fee.
Oh yeah,
she's just going to film. Well, she's just going to film me shouting at people.
Okay, yeah, that sounds about right.
Not aggressively, just like I'm going to do the megaphone, not the megaphone thing, but it's going to be something similar. But I'm going to sort of embed myself in certain bits of like the walls of the city, like kind of, and then shout things. So, and then film it.
Right.
So,
yeah.
And I'm going to be putting a few videos up. So.
Fabulous, darling.
Thanks for watching. Thanks to Roger, Lesoir, Critical Cupcake.
Yeah, Roger, if you want to come and
Mercy,
you want to come and stand in for a while, give me a break. Let me know. Just send me a message. I'll sort it out for you. Don't worry.
I'm going to speak to Roger later. He's cheeky. Been very cheeky.
Bye. Catch you later.
Should we do a screenshot?